Hello everybody. So this video is for everyone, but it's really for the women of the US. I have been making this video for about 2 weeks and you need to pay attention. It is about the attacks on the women in Israel and how it pertains to you. Now, as women in the US, we have a reputation for being loud, but we're loud about things that don't matter. This matters, and it absolutely is something that you need to be paying attention to. Later, I'm going to tell you why, but first, I'm going to play you a clip of a testimony by a rescue worker. And his job was to go get bodies in Israel of women that were attacked by Hamas. I'm going to play it, and then when we come back, we're going to discuss it. And then I'm going to tell you why it pertains to you.
My name is Simcha Greeneman. I'm a volunteer in Zaka International Organization. I'm standing in front of you today to tell the story of the horrific things that I saw with my own eyes and I dealt with my own hands from October 7th. I was called down on October 7th to collect bodies and remains from the terror attack. One of the days, I was called into a house. I was told there's a few bodies over there. When I walked into the house, I saw in front of my eyes a woman laying. She was naked. She had nails and different Sorry. She had nails and different objects. In her female organs. Her body was brutal. Her body was brutal in a way that we could not identify her. From her head to her toes. She was abused in a way that we could not understand and could not deal with. The second body that we found over there was brutally abused in a way that we could not verify and understand, and we couldn't even identify if it's a man or a woman. different day, I got a mission to go into another house. I walked into this house, into the bedroom. There was a woman leaning on her bed. She was half naked, from her waist down. She was shot from the back of her head. When we turned her around, she had an open grenade in her hand. Thank God, no one on our team got hurt. I'm standing in front of you, telling the stories of these women, these people that were brutally butchered, killed in different ways. Hundreds of them in different ways were butchered and killed. And I dealt with a lot of them. My own hands, with my own eyes, I saw one by one. I'm standing in front of you to make sure that you hear the voices of those women that cannot stand next to us now and be here to scream out what happened to them. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom.
So that man is disturbed. He said that there were nails and other objects in her female organs. That is next level evil. He is going to need help, probably for the rest of his life, mentally. He is disturbed, bothered, shook. Now, it takes a lot. For me, it takes a lot to disturb a human being, especially a man. Because women, we are emotional creatures by nature. We just are. Men are not. So to disturb a man to where he's that bothered, he couldn't even, the pauses lets you know how bad it was what he saw. So to disturb a man like that, what he saw was absolutely unimaginable. Why does it pertain to the women in the U.S.? What does it got to do with you? Do you know what they call Israel? The people, I can't even call them people, the monsters, the demons that did those attacks. First of all, they come from a place that chant death to America. Do you know what they call Israel? The people that did these attacks. Do you know what they call Israel? The little Satan. And this is what it's got to do with us. Do you know what they call the U.S.? The great Satan. They call Israel the little Satan, and they call the U.S. the great Satan. If they did this to the women in a place they called the little Satan, what do you think they're going to do to the women in the place they call the great Satan? And it's not if, it's when. Because they're already here. You can thank Joe Biden for that. With the open borders, he's allowed them to walk right in. How do I know? I'm going to play you another clip of the head of the FBI addressing his concerns of a terror attack that is associated with the war in Israel.
So many of the threats are all elevated, all at exactly the same time.
So blinking red lights analogy about 9/11, all the lights were blinking red before 9/11. Apparently, obviously, all of us missed it. Would you say that there's multiple blinking red lights out there?
I see blinking lights everywhere I turn.
As a senior Hamas official is now calling for violence against American and British interests across the world as retaliation for supporting Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. This amidst a surge of foreigners flooding the U.S. southern border. 10,000 people in a single day just this week. Some on the U.S. terrorist watch list. Customs and Border Protection sources telling Fox News over 535,000 migrants have already been apprehended for this fiscal year, with an additional 60,000 plus listed as gotaways. And again, the fiscal year business can military weapons in the Tucson sector. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning. Should we be worried about a terrorist attack on U.S. soil?
Absolutely, we should be worried. I had Director Wray in front of my committee for our worldwide threats briefing, and he clearly said, that the open border has created both an increased risk for his agents who are now hunting these individuals inside the United States, and certainly an increased risk to the American people. And he expressed a real fear and worry about what's happening inside our country. 294 terrorist watch list folks since this president came to office. Compare that to only 11 during the entire Trump administration.
Well, that's incredible. What are you doing about it?
So there you go. It is important that you take this shit seriously. Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself. He's more interested about everybody else. And he has put America in danger. I don't have to watch the news or listen to mainstream media. I just do my own research and put things together. You're not going to tell me the sky's green when it's obviously blue. You're going to have to think for yourselves, people, before it's illegal. They're trying to silence us. They're trying to keep you from knowing the truth. Google controls what shows up in the searches now. So you can't even get real facts anymore. They're controlling who we can and can't vote for by trying to take Donald Trump off certain ballots in certain states. That's not your job. You can't tell us who we can vote for. And we just letting them do it. Do you know who the government is more afraid of than anything? The masses. We outnumber them. They lose control of the masses is their greatest fear. And we all need to know that. Why do you think they work so hard to divide us? But according to my research, every time I look something up on how divided the U.S. is, we're all saying the same thing. We need to come together. We need to unite. There needs to be more peace. We need to stop fighting each other. If we're all saying the same thing, how are we divided? Stop letting them tell us that we're divided when I think we're more united than what they're leading on to be, because we're all saying the same shit. If we're all saying the same thing, that's not division. It says here that in the fiscal year of 2021, arrested 12,025 individuals with aggravated felony convictions. Amongst those offenses, 3,415 of them were sexual assaults. Those just were the ones that were apprehended. It's really sad. There is a preview. I'm going to play another clip of what's happening in Europe. It's just a preview, they say, of what we have to look forward to. Watch this.
potential repercussions of unchecked illegal immigration. In Italy, more than 155,000 migrants reportedly landed this year, up some 50% from the year before, according to Italian news outlets. Most of that is by sea. And in Germany, a brand new report indicates at least 7,000 women have been sexually assaulted by illegal migrants since 2015, when the country became an epicenter for Europe's refugee crisis. Here to react is documentary filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, thanks for being here. You have covered this illegal migrant issue in Europe extensively. How bad is it, and what kind of preview could it be for America, where we're taking in even more?
Yeah, no, it's bad, and it's getting worse, and it's across Europe, right? Italy, this is kind of a somewhat newer phenomenon. I think Germany, France, Sweden have been dealing with these issues for a very, very long time, and it has had massive social ramifications. I know that a lot of Europeans want to ignore that, and they've ignored it for years. And by the way, that ignoring of it has led to tumult in those countries. If you look at Germany, for example, the illegal immigrants that Germany make up about 2.5% of the population. That excludes the Ukrainians, right? That's carving the Ukrainians out. Now, 2.55% is a large number in of itself, but if you look at what the ratio in terms of the amount of violent crime committed by the illegal immigrants, they make up about 10% of violent crime. So the huge outperforming of their population set. No, it's been terrible. And in terms of the ramifications and the lessons we can learn in the U.S., look, we're seeing a similar massive migration from our southern border. And I think it's a preview of things to come. But not only that, I think the left, Democrats in particular, should take note more than anybody else. Because what you've seen this illegal immigration in Europe driving a move to the right. You've seen now in Italy, in Norway, with Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. You've seen a massive political shift happening to the right, primarily driven by the immigration crisis. If I'm a Democrat, and we know that the immigration crisis is one of the top issues, along with inflation and the economy here in the U.S., I would take note, and I would be very, very worried.
Great point. Ami, you take the stat of the 7,000 sexual assaults by illegals in Germany. There's multiple parts to that, but a lot of it is that these folks are coming from countries with very different social norms, you might say, and they're not assimilating to those countries. But then also the press in these European countries, I've followed this very closely. They will often not acknowledge that the perpetrator in an assault isn't illegal. They'll work very hard to not talk about that. So they don't even want to acknowledge that this happens.
In 86,000 migrant encounters this month, shattering the previous record high from just a few months ago. Add on at least 83,500 known gotaways since October 1st.
It's pretty crazy to see what's happened over the last 3 years of the Biden administration. Those numbers, as you've seen, get worse, not better. It's not like they're solving the problem. They're actually helping aid and abet the cartels. And then Texas says, we've had enough. We're going to do something about it. And then they threaten us from enforcing our own laws. It seems pretty crazy, and it's hard to believe that we have a government that is working against its own citizens and helping the cartels move as many people across the border as possible. Well, look, all of these cities during the Trump administration created sanctuary cities and discouraged the Trump administration from blocking the border and keeping these illegals from coming across. Now that the Biden administration is allowing them, and they're getting a few hundred or a few thousand versus the literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, that the border states are getting, they're complaining. And it's a little ironic that they're blaming Texas when all we're dealing with is a much more significant problem than they are.
The numbers don't lie. 200 and something compared to 11. The numbers don't lie. My biggest question was why? Why is he allowing this to happen? And I'm no conspiracy theorist, so I did my research and I know how to connect the dots. I know 2 and 2 is 4. And What I've come up with is, one, Joe Biden knows there's no way in hell Americans are going to vote for him for a second term. They're not. Not going to happen. How do you combat that? Two, you drown out the American vote. How do you do that? Three, you let all the illegal immigrants in, as many as possible. Now, if you watched my other video about the illegal immigrant crisis in New York, you'll know that when they get here, they're given IDs. What does that have to do with anything? 4, voter ID laws aren't going anywhere in some states. How do you combat that? You give them all IDs. So they can what? 5, vote for Biden. Because who you going to vote for if you get to come to the greatest country on earth and you get everything handed to you, child care, health care, food, clothes, cell phones? Who are you going to vote for? The person that gave it to you, which is Joe Biden. So the more the merrier, because he needs the votes to drown out American vote. See, he's anti-American right there. Right there. That lets you know right there. That was my conclusion. Makes sense to me. But what he's not taking into consideration is the criminals and the terrorists that he's letting over here. They're just slipping right on by. That's what he's not taking into consideration. Why? Because he doesn't care. I know some of you are going to say, you're only playing clips and clips from Fox News. That's because they're the only ones reporting on this shit. Left mainstream media is sweeping it under the rug like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal. That's why. That's why, because they're the only ones talking about it in a sense that it is a danger to our country. And it is. I'm going to show who's talking about it because Americans need to be aware of what's going on. Women, watch your back. You've seen what they did to the women of the little Satan. They're already here in our country. And they call us the Great Satan. Keep these women in Israel in the back of your mind. Men, you should be outraged saying, you are not going to do this to our women. Because it could be your mother, your sister, your wife, your daughter that this happens to. They are here. Joe Biden don't care. I read that if they wanted to stop the border crisis, they could do it in one day. They could end it. Just like that. He doesn't want to because he needs to drown out our vote. He's trying to drown out our voices, our opinions, our vote. It's trying to change our country completely. They're trying to control us. We're just letting them. We all need to speak out and let them know we're sick of this shit. I know I am. I would love to come home with a paycheck after work instead of just the check stub. I'm not okay with being put in more danger, more of a chance of me getting raped. It's disgusting how Americans are just keeping quiet. Say something. You need to know that the government's biggest fear is the masses because we outnumber them. lose control of the masses is their biggest fear. Why do you think they're working so hard to control us, to silence us, to take away our rights and our freedoms? Because if we all get together and declare our government a common enemy that all of us, the masses, have, that's what they fear. They work so hard to control us, and they work so hard to divide us. This shit would have never happened under Trump. Now we gotta worry about Hamas terrorist attacks. That's scary. My home is heavily armed. I'm gonna protect mine. Women out there, you guys need to watch your back. Don't take any risks. Protect your families. And like I said, keep these women that were attacked in Israel in the back of your mind every time you go somewhere. Every time you look at your daughters, your mothers, your sisters. Men, you do the same thing. It's a big deal. We all need to express how sick and tired we are. I know I am. To all those women that lost their lives in Israel, and to their families, my prayers and my heart, it aches for you. It grieves for you. And I support Israel's right to defend themselves. Take care and be safe.